Hello there. For all my wanderers, beholders of curiosities or otherwise ghoulish fiends, take heed and consider this a prelude, a warning, perhaps, before you choose to inquire thus further, as we venture into the world of horror, a world that is not as far or as different from ours as we like to think. A world that might never be understood and perhaps shouldn't be. Come and uncover with me tales of dread, chronicles of the uncanny, explorations into the strange and scary, and for all the things that go bump in the night. I am Ravenna Grim, and this is Behind the Button Eye. It was only a couple months ago that I happened to watch I Saw the TV Glow for the first time. I didn't really know much going into the movie, which is usually my preference for going to watch movies, especially horror or horror-adjacent ones. I find that it forces you to open up your mind in a peculiar way. It makes it so that you are more receptive not only to the story that's being told and how it's being told, but to be more likely to notice the more subtle choices that are being made constantly throughout a film. It keeps you on your toes, keeps you more engaged. I find that it makes relating to the characters more seamless because, in a way, you're just as clueless to what's going on as they are. Sometimes even more so, especially when it pertains to how the world the story takes place in works. It didn't take much time watching the movie for me to figure out that this was not going to be a cut and dry story. It also didn't take a whole lot of time for me to have the understanding that this movie was going to be one of those that I don't watch that often, but one that will always stay with me. The movie begins in the 90s and centers around two teenagers, Owen and Maddie, and their favorite TV show, The Pink O'Peck, a show that follows its two central characters, Isabel and Tara, teenagers who meet at a summer camp and are psychically connected. Each week, the pair face off against a new monster that's sent by the main villain of the show, Mr. Melancholy. Although Maddie is a couple years older than Owen, perhaps by fate, they meet while Owen's mother is voting at the high school. Maddie is reading a book about the TV show, and Owen is intrigued by it, although he has never seen it because the show airs past his bedtime. Maddie still invites him to come to her house to watch the show, and he successfully does sneak out in order to watch the show with her. Although it isn't possible for him to sneak out each week, Maddie records the episodes Owen misses and leaves tapes for him at school for him to pick up. At one point, Maddie explains to Owen how the show feels more real to her than real life. There's several time jumps in this movie, and one of the first ones is about a couple years later, and Owen and Maddie are watching The Pink O'Peck, and Maddie starts to cry. She tells Owen that she plans to run away, at least partly to escape her abusive stepfather. Maddie wants Owen to run away with her, and tells him to not tell anyone of their plan. However, Owen ultimately doesn't run away with her. Later on, three things occur around the same time. Owen's mother dies of cancer, Maddie is missing. To cap it off, though, The Pink O'Peck is cancelled. Around 8 years go by, and Owen is still living in his hometown, and specifically still at his childhood home with his dad. We see him working at a movie theater. While at a grocery store one night, Maddie reappears. They go to a bar to talk, and Maddie begins questioning him about what he remembers about their favorite TV show. She tries to explain to Owen that she has been inside the show the whole time she's been missing, and that he needs to rewatch the final episode. Owen is back home and watching the final episode. The episode is about Isabel and Tara being buried alive and trapped in an artificially created universe called the Midnight Realm by Mr. Melancholy and his minions. We see Owen trying to go through the TV, or more so, busting his head through the TV with his father pulling him out. The following night, Maddie and Owen meet up again, and Maddie explains that nothing changed when she ran away, that no matter where she went, she felt the same. She paid someone to bury her alive, which caused her to wake up in the Pink O'Peck as Tara. She says that they are actually Tara and Isabel, and they are trapped in the Midnight Realm. Maddie, or at this point Tara, tries to convince Owen that he needs to bury himself alive too, so that they can go back to their actual reality together and be their true identity. As they start heading to do just that, walking across a football field together, Owen runs away. This will be the last time we see Maddie and Owen together. About 4 years later, Owen's father dies. Around this time, Owen's place of work goes out of business, but is transferred to a family entertainment center, a place that is somewhat reminiscent of Chuck E. Cheese's. It seems it's been a while since Owen has watched The Pink Opaque, and he explains how it's now on a streaming service. However, when he decides to rewatch it, it's different from how he remembered. It doesn't resonate the same way, and feels a lot more childish and low production. Again, more years pass by. Owen still lives in his childhood home and says that he has a family of his own, even though we never see. He is still working at the family entertainment center, and while at work, a birthday party is commencing. He suddenly begins screaming in pain. The world around him freezes in a way. He is screaming out for help. He is screaming that he is dying. Although there are a good amount of people around him, the people are frozen. Not really in a completely literal sense, but they sit and stand in silence, despite his screams. This follows with Owen hiding away in the bathroom, where he cuts his chest open, revealing a TV screen inside him. A TV screen that's playing The Pink Opaque inside. You might think this is the moment that Owen goes back to that football stadium and buries himself alive and wakes up as Isabel, the true self. But no. Instead, he walks out the bathroom and back into the main space of the place, and as he walks, continuously apologizes to the partygoers that he goes past. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Once an egg is cracked, can it ever truly go back to what it was before? I know this might seem like a random side tangent unrelated to the topic of this video, but stay with me on this egg business. Cracking the egg, or the egg crack, to put it simply, is a phrase that can be used to describe when a person realizes that they're trans. Sometimes that can look like one definite moment or more of a series of moments added up together before the realization dawns on them, that all the dots finally connect, the moment when the denial is cracked. Likewise, someone who is trans but hasn't had this cracking of the egg moment, so in turn doesn't know that they are trans yet, might be referred to as being an egg. A way to think about this is that the egg is a metaphor of the denial stage that many trans people experience before accepting that they are trans. I Saw the TV Glow holds a bunch of meanings, allegories, and themes, but the real meat of the story, or maybe it's more fitting to say the real omelet of the story, is an egg's journey to finally crack, and more so, what happens when it tries to refuse to crack. A story of a teenager who feels isolated, different from others, finds solace in a TV show and a kindred spirit. But still, something isn't right. Things change. Their friend is missing. Years pass. Their friend returns, offering an explanation of what's wrong, a way to fix it. But they can't face it. More years pass. They finally crack. The realization that what their friend said was true. The realization of their true self happens. But they try to hide it away and put themselves back together to how they were before, and apologize for being themselves. Jane Schunbrunn is the director and writer of I Saw the TV Glow. Jane had their own egg crack moment in April 2019 during the process of writing their other movie, We're All Going to the World's Fair. In a Paper Magazine article, Jane talked about writing I Saw the TV Glow, when they were still very early in their transition and dealing with the beginnings of coming out. I think that the movie is about half of someone's life, and in this sense, half of my life. Spent doing everything I could to repress and avoid a thing that, once I finally saw it, was both liberatory and absolutely terrifying. Once you see a thing you can't unsee, which was in my case, transness, you're faced with two bad options. One is likely social death and estrangement from everything that you've thought of as reality. and the other is continuing to live a life that isn't yours and isn't right. And that's just an incredibly heavy and overwhelming thing. I think this movie serves as an interpretation for trans adolescents and overall being queer growing up, especially growing up in an environment that's not that accepting, that doesn't feel fully safe being who you are. Jane, the director, grew up in 90s suburbia and describes it as being, quote, very homogenized and monocultural, end quote, and that even though they were told in school that they could be anything they wanted, but that didn't include being trans. It's pretty depressing to think that a lot of these themes and sentiments are still relevant today. On one hand, I won't deny the progress that has been made since the 90s when it comes to LGBT plus awareness, rights, and support. But on the other hand, it's kind of impossible to turn a blind eye to the current social and political climate. It's difficult enough having to face homophobia or transphobia on a more societal scale. But if you also are experiencing that within your own family, that's another level of deep isolation. Adolescence is already challenging enough. You're trying to figure out who you are and your place in the world. Having a lack of support or virtually no support from your family, the people who are supposed to love and care for you, especially when you're also in a place where you are entirely dependent on them for practically everything, is just frankly awful. It's unfortunately not a rare experience for queer people to be estranged from their family, whether as a whole or with certain family members, and estrangement can last a lifetime. The director said in an interview, I think many people, even if they are sympathetic to narratives of biological family estrangement, still want to believe in resolution or restorative reparative work. And I think this does a disservice to queer people who are not in control of whether that work can be done. While watching this movie, there were parts of Owen's plight that resonated with me. When Maddie asks him about his sexuality while hanging on the bleachers, he says, when I think about that stuff, I feel like someone took a shovel and dug out my insides. I know there's nothing there, but I'm still too nervous to open myself up to check. The sentiment feels very reminiscent of my middle school self. I kind of just avoided the concept of sexuality, mostly because it made me uncomfortable. I honestly still avoid it, more so that I just don't really talk about it ever. I'm married to a man, so it's not like it's going to be brought up in conversation or anything really. It took me a long time to come to the realization that I'm bisexual, and I think there's still part of me that is still pretty hesitant to open up about it. I still remember the time in middle school when my brother vented to me about a breakup and how crazy bisexual women are and how there's something wrong with them. Or the time a Queen song was playing in the car, my mom and I started talking about Freddie Mercury, as you do, and bisexuality came up. It kind of derailed from there. A lot of the cliche stereotypes came up like, men and women are so different, how could anyone like both? Or that they must have a sex addiction, or they're just confused. I'm lucky in a sense that I found my person and they so happen to be the opposite sex, so I don't have to have a conversation with my family or anyone else really. I think the biggest thing though is this sense of not belonging. Even though on the surface I fit into the straight relationship box, I don't. And most of the time I don't always feel like I belong in the LGBT plus community either. Mostly because there are a lot of people that play the are you bi enough game or have other harmful preconceived beliefs about bi people. Overall, it just leaves one feeling like there isn't a place where they fit in. And in the case of Owen, even when the egg crack moment happens at the end of the movie, we don't see him rush off to bury himself and become Isabel. The director said in an interview, I don't view it as a cautionary tale or a definitively sad ending. I just think it's truthful to the fact that if you've been taught your whole life to think of yourself as an imposter or apologize for being yourself like many trans people are, that instinct doesn't go away overnight. The past can tick away inside us for decades like a silent time bomb, until it sets off a cellular message that lets us know the body does not forget the past. I think the sentiment of once you see it, you can't unsee it also rings true for when it pertains to mental illness, feeling alone, or like an outcast, and in a more general or greater sense, with trauma. It's not so much what the trauma is or when it happens, but when you realize that it is trauma, when you see it for what it is. Sometimes this doesn't even mean having the correct language or terms to describe it, to name it, but just knowing that something isn't right. In the movie, words like transgender aren't ever said or mentioned. The characters don't have the access or knowledge of that information, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Their feelings of emptiness and loneliness, mixed with feeling like they're different and outcast, that they don't belong, are proof. It's not uncommon for teenagers and adolescents to go through periods of depression and/or anxiety, or to develop mental illness. When it comes to Owen and being trans, but not knowing it, and living in an environment that isn't supportive, who wouldn't be depressed and feel alone? I think back to when I was a teen, and even though I didn't refer to what I was going through as trauma during that time, I knew it was affecting me. I knew that something wasn't right. Already I couldn't unsee it. As time went on and the years ticked by, more and more epiphanies started occurring, and by the time I did see it as trauma, and much later on when receiving a mental health diagnosis by a therapist, I really couldn't unsee it. Although, in a way, nothing I was experiencing changed once having these realizations, my understanding did. I could not only put a name to what it was, what I was experiencing, but in turn, actually reach a deeper understanding of myself and what I've gone through and still go through. While I watched, I saw the TV glow, and even more so when I reflected upon it after watching, this particular sentiment from the movie felt like a bittersweet mantra that, like in Owen's predicament, wouldn't let me forget or unsee it. The Pink Opaque TV show in the movie and even in the movie as a whole serves as an homage to many shows and movies that the director Jane felt inspired by or close to. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The X-Files, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, Twin Peaks, Donnie Darko are just a few examples. It's rather poetic that there was so much media that inspired and influenced the movie, since media is such a crucial part of the film. Specifically, media escapism. Owen and Maddie's favorite TV show is a coping mechanism for them, an escape from their lives. I think this section from Ken Arnold's article from the Nashville scene puts it best. Sometimes life can be unreasonably hard. The daily abuse the world doles out leads many to search for a way to cope. In the modern era, many of us turn to some sort of escapism. Whether it's books, movies, video games, anime, or TV, we're drawn to fiction, where we don't have to be ourselves for a time. We all have the media we disappear into, our place of comfort to escape a hostile environment where even just being our authentic selves is sometimes unacceptable. Owen and Maddie are not accepted by the world around them, so they escape to a place where they can feel seen and accepted, where they can be themselves. The Pink Opaque lets them dissociate from the loneliness and problems of their lives. Disassociation is the disconnection from one's thoughts, feelings, memories, actions, or sense of identity. Everyone experiences disassociation, but it's typically in a more mild form, like daydreaming or getting lost in a book or movie. The disassociation, the hiding in stories and hiding in fandom, was a survival tool, the director said. In a Vulture article, Jane talks about how they used to list the titles of every Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode to fall asleep at night. As the Pink Opaque was a safe refuge for Owen and Maddie, Buffy the Vampire Slayer served as a similar safe haven for Jane. The older I got, and the more I found myself clinging to those fictional worlds, the more the desperation of it maybe started to reveal itself. And I hope this is not a film about how great it is to be a TV fan, and also not a film about why TV sucks. It's a film about being lonely and looking for something that feels like real life. This theme of the movie is relatable to me in an uncomfortable way, a way that ultimately brings me a sense of comfort, but touches on some specific insecurities that creates a rather uncanny, vulnerable feeling. Media escapism is my most prominent coping mechanism. When my life started being in turmoil, which was around middle school, I found solace in the world of comic books. It all really began, though, when I decided to watch a show from my early childhood. I remember using Netflix's DVD by mail service, where I began to watch, from beginning to end, the 2003 Teen Titans TV show. Like Owen and Maddie in The Pink Opaque and Jane and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Teen Titans was my world that I could escape to. And like The Pink Opaque, it was the show that sometimes felt more real than real life. There is a level of embarrassment that I feel when I think back to that time and how obsessed I was with the show, and admittedly how I still love it in the various series of comics. At the same time, though, I feel a sense of sorrow and protectiveness of my younger self and the obsession. I felt miserable most of the time, and this was one of the only consistent things I found comfort and joy in, so it's no wonder that I clung to it, and therefore it makes sense that there is part of me still that clings to it. Horror isn't always about scary monsters, killers, or supernatural entities. The horror that gets to me, that's really scary, are things that are not just realistic but relatable. The ones that tap into the specific fear and insecurities, the ones that are kept locked up tight. And I Saw the TV Glow, the all too real fears of not being yourself, hiding parts of yourself or who you are, and not living the life you actually want to, are resounding fears that I think everyone experiences, at least at some point. The ones in which you don't think about or deny, until, like Owen, you take a moment to cut yourself up and take a look inside. This movie and the fears and feelings it can bring up are daunting, and at the least, can leave one feeling disheartened and hopeless, especially at the ending with Owen. It can feel suffocating. But there is some solace that not only Owen can have, but us as an audience. Before Maddie disappears again, we see a note she wrote on a street in chalk that Owen comes across. There is still time. For Owen, that means there is still time to go bury himself by the stadium, to be Isabel, to be his true self. Whatever you want to do or to be, whatever you need to do or to be, there is still time. No matter how much time passes, no matter how much older you get, if you are alive, then there is time. If you are reading this message, there is time. As melancholy and heart-wrenching as the ending is, there is still underlying hope. It is never too late. There is still time. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. This video is a bit difficult for me to make, so I appreciate you for being here, and I would love to hear your thoughts about I Saw the TV Glow. If you enjoyed the video, please give a like or comment, and if you want to see more videos like this, I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd subscribe to this channel. Thank you for venturing with me into the world of horror. Farewell and safe departures, my little ghouls.